Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash as well as the latest episode of Black Lightning. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of The Flash, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Black Lightning. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of The Flash. A great episode. Okay, so basically I thought it was so interesting that Wolf didn't immediately out Barry. Like, the conversation was held, but I guess others didn't really hear it, the other prisoners, because he's like showing off like, oh, here are all the other metas I'm selling you. It's the metas that Barry's caught so far, in particular the bus metas, which begs the question, why did Wolf imprison these ones specifically? What about all the other metas? I guess because they were newer prisoners, it was a lot easier to kind of keep them detained. Nevertheless, I mean, it'd be easier to sell them off because they're just recently detained, so he can easily work it around like, oh, don't worry about them or something like that, being wardened and everything. But then he explained it to Amunet like, oh wow, he's a speedster, but he never said exactly he was the Flash, which I guess at the same time, even if they heard the term speedster, they're like, oh, I guess he's like the Flash or whatever. You know, I'm surprised they didn't immediately put it two and two together, but maybe they heard the term speedster, they didn't know what it was. I'd assume you would still know, but still. But he didn't even go, oh, this is the Flash. Like, he didn't even mutter that to her. So she's like, oh, which is like, oh, this is what you're looking for, which is kind of interesting because Amunet's in kind of the collection agents, kind of the collecting of things, and it's like, well, of course she would want a speedster because it's just like they are a special breed. Like, you know, it's like I'm sure you can make a lot of money because each metahuman has their own individual ability. So, you know, there's no one else who can compete with what a speedster can do, as I've done a video talking about a little bit of what speedsters are capable of. So it's just kind of interesting when you break that down. But what I wasn't expecting in the episode was a prison break. And you see kind of Barry using his smarts to kind of basically put stuff in motion using batteries, a bottle, some liquid, all for the purposes of getting out this jail cell. I also wasn't expecting to is he broke the other metas out too. For his main reason for doing it is because, well, breaking out the other metas, it's like, well, they're all going to be sold to Amunet too, and if I leave them here, they're going to be sold. So besides, Barry isn't going to, you know, leave people behind, not only because they could be used as weapon, but it's like he's not about to let them be turned into weapons, like enslaved and sold off like property, because they're people too. So I did appreciate the fact that he was getting close. I'm blanking her name, but Sharp. I initially thought of her as Jinx. She even says the word Jinx, but I forgot what the name Cisco gave her. But the ability to kind of create good luck for herself but bad luck for everybody else. And you see Barry kind of like, she's kind of like the nicest of the ones. She's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of done with my life of crime. She even helps out Barry when he knocks out that witness, because she was the only one that's like, no, we don't have to kill him, because she went about went on her crime spree and everything because she felt like life was kind of against her, and so she just kind of got caught up in like, oh, I'm winning for the first time, and even if it meant destroying the city, it's just, for her, it's just like, no, I'm winning. But now, you know, in retrospect, she doesn't want to use her powers for bad, especially when she talks to Barry. It's like, you know, your powers don't define who you are. We define ourselves by using them, you know. So, but at first I was almost like, oh man, they're going to get out of this situation never knowing who Barry actually is, until Wolf opened his mouth. It's like, oh yeah, because I was like, oh yeah, they secretly don't know that they're working with the same dude that put them all in here. Especially because Barry's like, yeah, you do anything bad, the Flash will catch up. And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, you've been secretly working with the Flash the entire time. But what I really appreciate was the fact that Sharp, once again, it's so interesting. I mean, I kept bringing that comparison up because from Legends of Tomorrow, like I said, there's Sharp that works with the, I'm blanking on the name. Isn't it the Time Agency? Like, the Time Bureau, that's it. God, I was blanking on it, or it's been a while. But, I pointed that out too. I was like, her name is Sharp. Is there any kind of connection there? Which begs the question, like, well, with everything that happens in the episode with her kind of like being possessed by DeVoe and everything, it's like, well, what the hell does that mean in the long run? Does that mean like she doesn't exist, or is there a way to save them? And also, now that he's left Dominic's body, does that mean Dominic is dead? Because it's like, well, his mind, like, I guess it's that situation of only one consciousness can occupy a body, and once his consciousness overwrites yours, you're going forever. But we ultimately ended, like I said, it's so sad because she was doing good. She helped out Barry. She fought off the other three metas. Amunet came, and then like using her abilities, like she shut Amunet down too. And it's like, oh man, she's a good guy. It's like maybe eventually she can join Team Flash or something like that. But it's like, nope. And I'm like, oh man. So it seems like his plan in particular is gathering up metas and stealing their abilities. And not only, because when he does it, it isn't, because I guess it's a situation of once he downloads his consciousness into your body, he gets access to your abilities. Because I guess like their meta abilities are tied to your brains in some shape or form, or maybe it's just kind of how it works. But when he sucks out when he puts his consciousness in your body, he automatically gains your ability, like he did Dominant. But I thought like your abilities were tied specifically to your body, but I guess they're not. Like I said, his machine takes the consciousness and rips out the ability as well. So he's moving from person to person to person, and stealing their abilities along the way and stopping in Sharp's body. He kills Wolf too because he's like, oh no, I'm here to take your life force. So it isn't just about stealing abilities; it's also about life force as well, in a sense. But then I started remarking on that too. I was like, oh, so does that mean he's going after, is that what the purpose of the other 12 metas are? But Barry brings up something interesting. It's like, why specifically these 12 metas? Like, why no one else? Because it's like you're an iron. Like, there are other metas locked up. It's like, oh, you could have easily gotten any meta's ability. I mean, with this, he could be like the ultimate because he has his natural ability on top of it, plus gathering. Like, he's already got like 5 other abilities now. The 4 he stole this episode along with Dominic's and with his own. So he has 6 meta abilities already. And you stack on top of that, like, is that why he wanted Barry to? Because he wants to steal Barry's speed? But at the same time, it's like, well, my brain kind of thinks one thing and I'll kind of quickly think it. I mean, he could get a speedster's ability. There's 3 speedsters he could take his speed, take that speed from. There's Barry, there's Wally, and then there's Jesse, which I kind of hinted at this before. Like, I think it was like season 2 or 3 I talked about this, but I do know canonically speaking, I don't know if it's all across all her canon, but I do know that Jesse never spent too much time as a speedster in the comic books. I do kind of know that she got killed. So what if that's what ends up happening? What if especially because in this episode, Harry's not here because he went to go check on Jesse on Earth 2. It's like, what if she comes to Earth 1 to help? And that's what they do. They just bring her back to Earth 1 just to kill her off, which would kind of suck, her and Wally breaking up, and then it just kind of like, bringing her back. It's like, maybe something can happen. Oh, she dies. I hope that's not the case because that would super suck for Harry, It's like a situation of no one walking away from this without a little tragedy in their life, which super suck. But that's where my brain goes. Because I feel like if you'd go after anyone's abilities, of course you'd want a speedster's abilities. But I'm curious, like, what, because this is all connected to the Enlightenment, but it's like, what does you getting all these different meta abilities? Like, is he trying to do a collecting thing of his own, get every single meta ability for himself? Like, but then again, like I said, it's these 12 specific. Like, once again, it's like, how does this all play out? Like, I guess he knew that. How did he know that Barry would? Well, I mean, it's a situation where it's like, once again, it's a situation where your meta abilities kind of reflect a little bit of your personality. Kind of, not really, but it kind of reflects a little bit of who you are. Like, for example, with Sharp, it's like she has like super like terrible luck, but it's like, her ability reflects that and gives her good luck while giving everyone else terrible luck. So the question is like, did he specifically set everything up? Did DeVoe want everyone on that bus to get a specific ability? That's why he chose those specific. Maybe he set everything up for those specific people to end up where they are. Because the crazy thing is, like I said, like DeVoe's kind of thought on this level, like, oh man, he's so far ahead. He's walking like hundreds of steps ahead with his ability. But then there were certain things that even Marlise was like, wait, what's going on? Like, Amunet is trying to buy them. And even like DeVoe was like, honestly, I don't know. She's like, what do you mean you don't know? You have this ability. You're supposed to know everything. You've always talked about how you've narrowed everything down, every possibility. But for him, it's like, I got so much on the forefront of my mind. And then it leaves me with like, I don't know. So that does point out that there are certain gaps in his ability, or we might be setting it up so that basically other meta abilities are interfering with his original ability, that if he fills himself up with too many meta abilities, eventually his original ability of being able to think so far in advance will eventually drain and slowly die off. And maybe because it does seem like it is affecting his memory, because he was like, what's this song you're humming? And she's like, it's like a song that's very important to them. It's like they played their one of like their first date, their first kiss and stuff like that. But he's like, no, yeah, at once it was at the forefront of my mind, but now I got so much on my mind, which immediately I go, oh, that sucks, because that's basically him saying like, oh, he wants to pretend like you're so important, but that's something that's so special between the two of you that he's so caught up in all of this that you become almost irrelevant to a certain extent, which is debatable considering what he does later on, drugging her, basically using that meta's, I forgot what he was called. The meta whose tears are kind of like a love drug. But I guess like for him, it's like, well, because she's the only one, he doesn't want to ever lose her. So she might become secondary in his mind, but I think that's still that human heart that kind of plays a role. Like, I don't ever want to let you go, especially because in this point in time, she's starting to doubt him because it's like, one, you killed Wolf. Because for Marliese, it's like everything's for the greater good. It's great for the greater good with the enlightenment and stuff like that. So if there's people that need to be sacrificed, that be these metas, that's it. She thought the ones that would ultimately be sacrificed. Barry's life is kind of forfeit because we don't need him to get in the way. Not necessarily forfeit. Like I said, not unless they end up planning on going after him, especially because after Barry spent so much time in the Speed Force, he is back and faster, so you probably want his speed amongst anyone else. So, but I think that might be the ultimate plan too, because maybe it's like he needs to build up before he gets to Barry, so he needs other Meta's abilities so he can combine them, be able to stop the Flash permanently, and then take control of his body. That might be the ultimate goal, to end up in Barry's body. Like, I don't know, but nevertheless, it's like if we have to make these sacrifices, which she's already got it set in her head, okay, I'll make these sacrifices for the greater good. But it's like Wolf, yeah, he might not have been a good person, but that was still someone outside of that accepted 12/13, if you're including Barry, that would be effective. So it's like, huh. And it kind of made her kind of see things a little differently, especially the way he's become. Like, he started using the ability to kind of read her mind more often. It's something that, I mean, literally, Joe and Cecile were dealing with this situation last episode, but for him, he keeps prodding around in her mind, and obviously she's humming that tune, so he wouldn't kind of read her thoughts, which kind of makes him more and more suspicious of her. Which, like I said, it kind of plays in that angle, like he just doesn't want to lose her. So, like I said, it is sad because, like, amongst anyone, Sharp was the one that was kind of like, none of them deserve to die. Yes, they were criminals and stuff like that, but they deserve to be in jail, not killed. But it's just like, because sadly, because Wolf did that, because he ankled Barry like that, because he knew, like, well, Barry would be the biggest issue to deal with if he had his speed. But it's because of that, Barry wasn't able to get to Sharp in time, and she ended up being taken. And so it's like, there is no reversing that. Those people are gone now. Which still means that he will be going after the other, which does include Ralph. So, but like really quickly, like, that shows you a lot, because it's like, the fact is, this person is a person that loves you. She's literally been by your side by everything, but the fact is, you're slowly changing, because it's like, well, obviously she didn't want to accept the plan, because it's like, well, the man she loves, she doesn't see him anymore. She hears him, but, you know, it's still not the person she loves. Like, it's no longer DeVoe's body that he's in, because especially now that he's jumping from body to body. But in this case, it's also like he drugged her on top of that. It's like, where's the love and trust? Like, I forgot, does that thing have like a limit or not? And also, what does this mean going forward for Amunet? Like, her little situation kind of messed up. I mean, Wolf is kind of going, so I guess we're going to get some other warden. I was wondering, I was like, oh man, Barry's going to be in big trouble staying around. I was like, all right, you have your powers again, so you can, okay, good. So he got back to his cell and everything. Which now that secret died with the warden, along with all the other guards that were there with him that possibly knew about Barry being the Flash and everything. So, I don't know. And then on top of all this was, you know, Ralph's side of things. He ended up running into an old pal of his, Earl. The story took on a different shape than I thought was going to happen. I thought ultimately, well, everything kind of fell apart in certain regards with Ralph, the storyline, but I thought like, oh, Ralph is going to mess up big time and things aren't going to work out with Barry. And he's going to feel so bad that he's going to end up going back to Earl and kind of going back and stepping back into his old habits. You know, kind of going back and being very shady, even though he's, you know, made big changes, because Earl got inside his head. It's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, you're going to let the people down that you consider friends. You're going to let them down like you let down everybody and end up alone again. Then call me. So I thought that's what that might be. But that might also be set up for later on. Maybe something later on down the road will kind of push Ralph to kind of go back down that route. Or maybe this is kind of some more so to represent, like, show Ralph, like, oh, I'm better than this. I am, you know, because that's one reason why things didn't work out, was because he was so in his own head that, you know, because Ralph ended up learning this episode, oh, apparently I can morph into other people, which is pretty cool. I'm actually surprised they didn't have to create a device to kind of make him mimic people's voice. Apparently he can just naturally do it himself. There was actually a meta-human, went back in season one, who could replicate people's, like who could impersonate people. So, but Ralph can kind of do the same thing. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat, like learning more and more about his abilities as time goes on, and like more and more stuff of what he's capable of doing. Everything kind of fell apart, especially because he was so close to nailing it too, because of like, oh, almost got Emunet to kind of drop everything, but the disguise, like, fell apart and everything. What was interesting though is the one that ended up giving him the pep talk ended up being Frost. I love that. And he's like, because she basically points it out to him as like, you're being an idiot about this. Like, you're worried, because he's like, for Ralph, it's kind of a sweet too, because he's like, well, you guys are actually the first friends I've had in a long time, and I don't want to lose that. And I just feel like I'm going to fail you. And then like, Frost is like, look at me. I've kidnapped and killed people, yet they refuse to give up on me. So until you kind of screw up that bad, you should kind of be like, you're good, you're going in. Which I was like, oh, that's sweet. Which immediately my brain goes, well, the fact of the matter is, like, I kind of had a feeling like this is like, are they setting up like a Ralph and Caitlyn type of situation, Caitlyn slash, Killer Frost thing. So it seemed like that might be what they're setting up. But that's pretty nice that she was the one that ended up, kind of fits the episode too, kind of like, oh, one reformed villain with another. Like I said, that's kind of become very contagious lately, whether you have all these reformed villains kind of running around. But nevertheless, I was actually taken by surprise with the whole Ralph thing. Like, I was like, oh man, they think it's Emunet, but it's actually Ralph. And so when things kind of went unlucky, I was like, I guess, that was Ralph playing along, but then I saw her powers go off, and I'm like, oh, that's actually Emunet. I was like, so where the hell is Ralph then? And lo and behold, shows up in the courtroom as DeVoe. I'm like, that's so good. And you see Marliese being like, wait, what? And just, I love it. And it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Even the judge was like, and Cecile was like, we literally have someone here in this world that is super fast, can run faster than light. So, you shouldn't underestimate, what is possible anymore. Cause she brings it up. It's like, oh, this isn't the first time someone has come back from the dead. It's like, to be fair, that's 100% true, considering the fact is, like, we have had zombies. There was that bully that Barry had back in season 1, like from when he was younger, who came back, who died. I forgot who ended up killing him, but he later on in it, like, was that season? No, I think it was season 2 sometime. He came back as a zombie, so that probably not exactly what she was probably referencing, but still. So Barry ended up getting released. That took me by surprise, especially because Barry's like, no, I'm going to go back myself until you guys can legally get me out of this. And it's like, it was so good. So Barry is free now, but it doesn't change the fact that DeVoe definitely needs to be stopped, especially with everything that's happening right now. They need to stop him before all the other, finds the other metas, like try to figure out what he's up to. Like I said, especially because he will be coming after Ralph, which immediately my brain goes, I hope that doesn't mean we are setting up to kill Ralph. I wonder what those TV specific, I mean, to be fair, like, it's the TV shows and stuff like that. It's kind of it's something I've kind of I made a video about recently about where you should kill off villains and stuff like that. I guess it also comes from whether or not they're big time villains. Cause like, like TV shows like this tend to use smaller villains repeatedly. It's not all that often you get to see repeated main tier villains. But to be fair, there are like outliers in that situation, like Merlin or like, God, I'm blanking. Damien Dark. Those are examples of villains that kind of being, pop up again and again. So, I know it's just something interesting. So I don't know whether they're like TV show specific villains or whether they are villains from the comic books. They probably are, because I know some, like I think Emunet's from the comic book too, if I remember correctly. I'm sure the Thinker is too, but like the other villains that Meta say he ended up creating. So I hope things don't end with like, oh yeah, Ralph is going to die. I was like, I hope that's not the case, especially since he is a target. So, like I said, maybe this will help them kind of figure things out. It's going to be awkward considering the fact that Barry was kind of released and everything. So it's going to be a little awkward at work. I'm sure he's going to put it all behind him, but it's like, oh, you were in prison and everything. So I wonder now that he's free, does that mean he'll ever take the time out to go visit Big Sir or Dave, So that was something I kind of brought up last time too. So like I said, to a certain degree, everything kind of has a happy ending, kind of ended off on a happy note. I'm glad it kind of ends, well, it still ends off on a bit of a downer with that whole situation, like I said, being kind of sucky like it is. But there's give and take with the situation. So you take the good with the bad, sadly. And bad news further is the fact is that the Flash will be going on a break. From what I was reading, it seems like it's going to be coming back in 3 weeks on February 27th. So do keep that in mind. But like I said, great episode. I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode when the Flash returns. And now moving on to this week's episode of Black Lightning, another great episode. In this particular episode, a new drug is circulating. It's called Green Light, which is kind of interesting. Like immediately, like you see that student Bernard at the beginning taking it, like he had taken it and he kind of loses himself and he like rips literally a toilet off the wall, well, a urinal. And immediately I was like, oh, so this gives you like superhuman strength. But then they kind of like later on, Gamby's like, well, it's kind of like, I think he said it was like crack and like PCP mixed together, and I'm like, and now I'm like, all right, PCP kind of like makes people like stupidly strong, like that's kind of like a steroid, and I was like, oh, so it is more grounded, but I was like, oh, I mean, but it would have been interesting if it is like it does give you like superhuman strength, but in this particular case, it's just like it just kind of like makes you kind of get all roided out and just a little crazy, so. But this whole situation around Green Light, it does present an interesting situation in the story, because basically, Jefferson wants to do whatever he can to help Bernard because it's like, well, Bernard will get suspended. Well, not even suspended, expelled from the school, which will basically hurt any chances of him going into college or anything like that. But, Jefferson wants to do whatever he can for him, just like he would any other student. But this does bring up a situation with the board because the board is like, no, we need to expel him. But Jefferson's like, no, I'm the one who gets final say in it and everything. And the vice principal, it's kind of got her opinion because it's like, yeah, I understand, I'm sympathetic, but it's just like you gotta think about the greater good because it's like this is about Garfield because basically it's about him putting it's almost like putting one student above Garfield, which isn't what he's trying to do and isn't necessarily what she's saying, but it's almost kind of like they're pitting it like that. But in actuality, what ultimately happens is that basically if Jefferson wants to help Bernard, he has to give up some of his power, his principle. Like normally it's like he has the final decision in every say so, but now the board is going to now have it's going to be more of a vote. He won't have final say, so his vote will just count as one vote like any other vote, so they can't outvote him now on any decision he makes. I think it's kind of interesting that the vice principal kind of set that up, even though the vice principal has a crush on Jefferson. Obviously she has a thing for him and everything. She wants to do whatever she can to help him. But to me, I just get this little weird feeling I don't know, I get the feeling like there's some political stuff going on behind the scene. She's kind of playing her own game. I don't know. I don't know if it's really like that or not. I feel like in some occasions it seemed like she sides with Jefferson, but other times I kind of feel like maybe she's kind of siding with the board. I mean, she's just doing her duties as a vice principal too. It's just, I don't know, I'm a little complicated. I just feel a little conflicted about the situation. I don't know, maybe there's something to it, maybe there's nothing to it, but like I said, that is kind of an interesting thing. Bernard kind of gets in trouble again, but I guess because it was kind of kept so low, the only people who know is Bernard's dad, Black Lightning and Jefferson. So it's a situation of I think it was probably kept so low key that no one really knows. Bernard's initial situation was well, it was a public thing at school. Because basically Gamby had said himself this is a super addictive drug. So even if you take one hit, hence why they said oh yeah, the first taste is free because they know you'll come back for more just because of everything. So it begs a question of it kind of feels like that situation is going to come up again because I'm sure if it got public, then Jefferson would have to worry about he had to defend Bernard again because it's oh well, he did it again, a second strike, but it's because he was able to keep this low key, it doesn't turn into an issue. But the next time it won't work out in his favor because it will just be the board against him. He might lean one way, but who's to say the entire board doesn't lean another? Because for them, it's what's best looking out for the school itself as Garfield rather than the individual students. It's kind of at least that's how it's seeming it's kind of painting it right now, but ultimately we'll see. What I also thought about was interesting about this episode is Anissa herself in a particular situation, her sitting down with the family and having dinner with the Hendersons and whole conversation of oh, Black Lightning is not that bad. The fact is he's actually kind of a good guy. And then, the whole conversation of being a policeman and a hero, a vigilante and all that. And then Lynn starts throwing out, because you see the conversation, you see Jefferson kind of perking up and you see Lynn kind of looking at him kind of a little pissed off from across the table. But for Lynn, it's like, well, what about his family? And Anissa's like, well, his family will be proud of him. Of course, they're going to support him. He's a hero, for goodness sake. But it's just kind of that, you see Jefferson kind of proud of her when she walks away because you see him kind of smiling because like, yeah, she kind of believes in what I do. My daughter thinks I'm a hero. I mean, so it's one of those things, but it's still that conversation of just because you have the power to do something doesn't mean you always should. It's that thing where it's like, if you have the power, you should help. But the sad thing is that they're all like, no matter what you do, there will always be people caught in a crossfire. This doesn't just apply to Black Lightning. The same thing could apply to Henderson and all cops. Like, the fact of the matter is, the harder you strike back at the 100 could easily take it out on people just to strike back at you, So it's that complicated situation. If you have the power, you should do something, but like, should you always do something? Do you cause more problems with when you try to help, And that's something I think Anissa's trying to pick up in this episode, which is kind of interesting too, because like you see her, I think her powers are starting to kind of get her a little cocky, because like the moment those guys are trying to sell drugs to those students earlier, and she's like, and they're calling her the B word, and she's like, wait, what'd you call me? And she steps to him, and that one dude kind of backs down a little bit. She's like, yeah, that's kind of got that look like, yeah, that's what I thought. And she kind of pays him back later on because she ends up punching him. But you can tell one of the dudes is like having trouble breathing. So the question, something I'm wondering is she stronger than her dad? Like I said, because so far her abilities haven't manifested in a lightning sense, but I'm sure that they will. But it's just like, I guess it's like I said, the electricity's forming around her muscles, but it hasn't, like, she hasn't been able to generate it yet. So I still... Well, because also probably in her mind, she still hasn't brought up the connection. Like, maybe there's something more going on here for her right now. All she knows is she has superhuman strength, and that's all she's really focused on. So what I'm curious is, like, is she stronger than her dad, or is it just because she doesn't know how to limit her powers? Her dad's had a lot more time to practice with his abilities. Hers are very new to her. And besides, Black Lightning's got to the point, like, Jefferson, he can use lightning too, so he doesn't always have to go full strength. But, once again, that does come back to control, which Anissa's controlling hers a little bit more, but I think it's also, it's affecting her personality too, because she is becoming a little more cocky, and so her anger, I think, kind of gets the best of her. But it is just more so, even though she can control her breathing to summon her power, she can't outright control it. So I think that, that's a big difference there. But later on, there's that whole situation with Grace. Luckily, Grace was knocked out, but she didn't see. But like, Anissa caused like quite a scene when she took those guys down. Like, a truck is flipped, like she cracked some concrete. Like, I guess maybe that's how she flipped some of that stuff, because it just, from the security cameras, like, she slammed her foot. I was like, well, what was the purpose of that? But I would assume kind of sending out a shockwave. But the fact that she did that. But what really got me was Gamby's reaction to it. He didn't say anything to Jeff. Like, Jeff showed up and was like, okay, what happened here? It's like, no, the cameras were messed up. They did. I mean, luckily, Anissa was wearing her hood at the time, so she was able to hide her identity. But still, it's a situation, you can tell he's taking photos. What also got me was the fact that he took a gun. I don't know whether it's just because he wanted to examine the scene, and then he just taking that just in case there's anyone left. I wonder if those guys are the 100 or something else, because they're like, oh, we need to burn down this bar because it's a lesbian bar or whatever, or club or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, like, so I don't know if they're 100 or were they just bigoted douchebags, but nevertheless. So I don't, like, Gamby might have just taken that for his own protection, because he might be the reason why he didn't say anything to Jeff is because, well, for one, it's like he wants him to focus more so on the 100 and everything and this whole business. So maybe that's one thing, but maybe it's also because he realized who it was, that it was Anissa. Like, maybe looking at these signs, he's piecing it together like, oh, this is very similar to Jeff. Is there someone else with abilities like him? Are they a friend or a foe? Like I said, or does he know that it's Anissa? Like I said, he got the footprint and everything like that. I mean, you would think security cameras would have caught Anissa without her hood on, because she had it part of the time off. So maybe in some of the other footage, maybe he had time to go rewind it completely. But, or maybe it's just with the way things were angled, she didn't come into camera view until she had her hood up. So I don't know. Have to wait and see about that, because Anissa's getting to the point, it's like, should I even bother telling my family? Like, it's like they'll try and stop me and whatnot. Like, I'm curious to see how long this keeps going before she actually learns the truth about everything, because she's getting inspired by Black Lightning, which, Jeff can, already is very conflicted about whether he's doing the right thing as Black Lightning or not. Is he doing more good than he is causing harm? And I think this was also a good lesson for Anissa to be careful about what she does to control her powers, because she wants to take bad guys down, sure, but she doesn't want to end up killing them, because like that guy was having trouble breathing, so it could be a situation of like she broke one of his ribs and it started poking into one of his lungs or something like that, you know? So I don't know, like it's going back to Gambi though, it's like he's been keeping, first he keeps the whole Tobias secret, now he's keeping this secret. It's like, what are you up to? What do you have planned? Why are you, like I said, last episode I justified his secrets about Tobias, but why this? Like I said, is it because he figured it out ahead of time? So, because the fact is I don't know, you know, maybe like I said, maybe it is about focusing on 100. I don't know. Which is kind of interesting that basically he now has goggles that almost work like detective vision. If you're familiar with like the Arkham games and stuff like that, Batman kind of has detective vision. Like in this particular case, you kind of have the same thing, except Black Lightning has like electric vision. Like he can basically see the electrical power of any device. So basically it kind of makes it probably easier to locate it. Probably like if like, you know, bad guys have cell phones, so it probably generates enough electricity. Well, the fact is people were showing up in his vision, so I'm wondering, is it like the natural electricity of a body, you know, the electrons and stuff, like can he actually like sense that charge through? I didn't really pay too much attention to really give it too much thought, because I was also thinking like, well, maybe they have electronic devices on them like a cell phone that automatically kind of acts as a blip on like, you know, the radar essentially, you know. So it is pretty sick to see. You know, it's not only like the powers, he also has some pretty awesome tech. And once again, you gotta give major props to Gambi too, because it's like he's doing this by himself. It's like, I'm definitely interested to find out how you became like the Alfred that you essentially are. Like, where are you getting all this tech from? Like all these, like, you know, I don't know, it's just interesting. I'm very interested to find out about his past, like how he became the sidekick that he is, you know, like how he, like I said, the Alfred to this whole operation. Yeah, because even I forgot, like, because Jeff was like, "Oh yeah, you didn't tell me I would get X-ray vision." Which, yes, X-ray vision could mean anything, because it's just like, "Oh yeah, I got X-ray vision," but it's like, come on, you're a DC hero and you're saying X-ray vision. It's like I mean, I forgot we got Karen with her X-ray vision, and Superman, and once again, that's on a different Earth, but still, nevertheless. You can't, like, because it's weird, because like my brain does that, because I was like, oh, X-ray vision, they're obviously referencing Superman and Superman. It's like X-ray is naturally a thing, but I guess it's just because when you slap on X-ray vision, it just makes me automatically connect those two. And maybe that's what it is, or maybe it's just like, no, he has vision that is X-ray. So it's just like that, not everything X-ray vision related automatically connects to Superman and Supergirl doesn't mean you're referencing them, but it's kind of where my brain went. Learned a little bit about Tobias in this episode. Learned that apparently before he got caught up in all this gang related stuff, being the bad guy that he is, actually was a politician, which was weird to think about. It's like, but basically it didn't work out, and now he kind of entered this whole world. Lady Eve and them gave him the 100 because they thought he killed Black Lightning. Basically, it's like, oh, that gave you your reputation and your credit. Yes, you done good work, but basically, it's like, and I like what Lady Eve said. It's like you lied on your resume. It's like, oh, this big accomplishment, and it's like, oh, you actually didn't do that. So it's like a lot of people don't respect you as much. So, which is also interesting too, because Lady Eve lets on. It's like, yeah, my partners, which is like, who are your partners? Because they've got to be connected to this. Because even Black Lightning realizes it, because it's like, okay, they're a little too organized just to be one gang. Like the way they're shipping stuff, and like and what they're shipping stuff in, like drivers for cars. It's like, this is beyond just a gang. So, like, the 100 is just kind of a outward force for whoever Lady Eve is, whoever Lady Eve really is, and who she's working with. What's kind of interesting, that thing about, like, it seemed like she was kind of filling a body up with, God, what's that fluid called that they put in, like, dead bodies? I was thinking about it earlier, but I'm completely blanking on the term. But the thing is, was she doing that or what? Like, does she secretly work at a morgue part-time? Like, what was that whole thing? Especially because it seemed like that person was alive. So I'm wondering, is it going to be like some, like, supernatural stuff of, like, bringing the dead back alive? Almost like some voodoo type of thing? It's like, I'm curious, is that what that's kind of set up for or not? Kind of like some Solomon Grundy type of bring people back from the dead type of thing? Or is it just like, oh, turning your organs to liquid and just sucking them out, or like what that whole deal is? Like, it just, we saw her doing it and so nonchalant, but we saw the guy's eyes open, so he was alive. So for what purpose? I don't know. Maybe he's someone that screwed her over and that was kind of punishment for him. I don't know. We do kind of find out why Tobias thought the Black Lightning was dead. It's like, oh yeah, his body fell in the river. There was a body that was pulled out, but then it was cremated. So the question is, who did they cremate then if it wasn't Black Lightning? But we also got introduced to Tobias's sister, Tori, his little sister Tori, who's here to kind of help with this whole situation, which she comes up with a plan, which really quickly, Lady Eve also told that story about was it like an African tribes that would basically believe that albinos are magic, so they'd grind them up into stuff and kind of sell them because they were magical. It's like, I would assume that's based on some like grain of truth or something like that. That is like a belief or something, which is like super fucked up. But nevertheless, anyway, getting back to what I was bringing up is Tori is kind of like going like, oh, why don't we make, Black Lightning kind of into a bad guy? Because if we do that, then everyone's going to turn against him and you won't have to worry about going after him yourself. Because now we see why Tobias has been a lot more like in secret about everything. Like because he says like there's warrants out for him in Freeland, so he can't be out and about. So he's got to hide, kind of strike from the shadows. So. But nevertheless, especially because it seems like this all deals with Khalil, because obviously he ends up finding out this episode like, oh man, there's a good chance I won't walk because his spine was completely severed, so he will be paralyzed. Well, at the same time, you see Jennifer struggling with this, like she's quitting track because it's like, I only did that to make Dad happy. She's trying to focus a lot on Khalil, and it's like her parents try to deal with like, you're doing a little too much. But for her, it's like, no, I'm doing, she's doing for her. It's like, I'm doing, what is right, and that's being there for Khalil. But for them, it's like, you're our main priority. Like Khalil's got his own situation, but it's like his mom working super hard just to pay off his medical bills and everything. Like it's hard because I think it's that situation of, she's his girlfriend and she wants to do whatever she can for him, especially because she probably feels responsible because it's like she went there and she kind of dragged Khalil along. So like him getting hurt was kind of like, I think in her mind, it is her fault for what happened to him, which it's not. It's just, if anything, it is Tobias's fault. But she feels responsible for that. At the same time, it's like, I'm your girlfriend and I don't know what to do and how to help you. Like, it's like, oh, like, because they just entered this relationship and she's here with him during like one of the most trying times. And you can tell it's kind of weighing on her because I think it's a situation of like, I just entered this relationship. She's a teenager. That's a lot to deal with, like your boyfriend being paralyzed. And it's just like, you just entered this relationship. To be fair, he was like a longtime friend of hers anyway. So that might not be the case, but that's still like a weight to put on her shoulder, especially because she wants to be there for him. But it's like, by being there for him, is she kind of being the only thing that keeps him going? Yeah, those nurses kind of talking back and forth with the report. And Jennifer's like, yo, shut up. He can hear you. Which Khalil is like, no matter what anyone says, he's going to try his best. But, subsequently learning this news, it changes your mentality, especially because Tobias is trying to use Khalil as an example and being like, oh man, I was hurt the moment I found out you were hurt. It's like, you weren't saying that earlier when Lady Eve was talking about you potentially like going to Olympic or something. And he was like, nah, he ain't going nowhere. He's going to stay in Freeland. So kind of shutting him down immediately, which is kind of interesting that you kind of lie out your ass like that. But nevertheless, so you can obviously say that Khalil is going to be the backbone essentially to their plan of like discrediting Black Lightning, trying to make it seem like it was Black Lightning's fault. And you see maybe Khalil isn't 100% there, but then he starts thinking more and more about what Tobias is, especially Tobias is like, oh, Black Lightning's wronged me too. And so eventually, probably given enough time, Black Lightning, especially if you have, Anissa going around doing what she's doing, eventually it might be to the point where people are like, oh no, the one that's causing all this problem, especially because Tobias and them could shift it like that. It's like, oh man, this is Black Lightning hurting so many people, getting said people that got hurt to lie about it. So, especially in Khalil's case, because it's like he's paying for the medical bills. The fact of the matter is, it's a lesser burden for his mom to worry about and everything. So, there's a lot of incentives to like go, I probably should do what this person says, because eventually Khalil might actually start believing it. Whether he actually blamed Black Lightning or not, I don't know. Maybe on some level he did, but they're definitely getting inside of his head. And like I said, I'm sure a lot of stuff going forward is going to paint Black Lightning as an enemy. I'm curious to see what Jennifer's going to think in the long run. Will she be with Khalil on it? Will she not? It is always interesting with situations like that where like a city turns against its hero, which has not happened too much. The only show it's happened on is Arrow, which deals with the whole vigilante angle. So difference between being respected 100% as a hero, whereas others just look at you as a vigilante. That you see the bias there, as I've brought up before, like how that's a thing, so how quickly people's opinions of you can change in these particular situations. So also, I really love the whole 2-bit situation in this episode. And he's just like, oh, well, come on. I know you're going to knock me out and call the police, but could you not? Because, I mean, they're going to get me like 30 years. Well, I can't do nothing about it. Come on. Should I really go away for the rest of my life for that? And then had the audacity. It's just funny that he said that, and then all that. He said, whoa, before you knock me out, can I get a picture? And you have Black Lightning looking like, what? And then he goes over and he's like, okay, can you light up too? And he's like, wait, what? And just knocks him out. And he's just looking like, what is up with this? It's like, I love you, 2-bits. You are amazing. I hope we see you some more. I hope you end up being someone that Black Lightning comes to about stuff in the future. He was the one mainly peddling the green light, but I'm sure we're definitely not done with that. Like, because I'm sure that's connected to the 100 and Lady Eve and all of that. Like, I'm sure, like, this criminal enterprise has many different outlets. So, like I said, overall, great episode. I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. Oh, yeah, I've completely left out the fact it's about Lynn being super pissed. Because she kind of cuts Jefferson off earlier when he tries to talk to her. But she, leaves a message and she's like, yeah, I'm a little mad at you. Because this whole Black Lightning thing has her conflicted. Rightfully so. Especially because she has her kids being like, oh, no. In particular, Anissa being like, no, Black Lightning's dope. Like, he's a hero. And he's, like I said, Jeff kind of smiling about it and everything. It's like, Black Lightning is tearing their family apart. And it's like, you don't think of, like, for her, it's like you're choosing Black Lightning over your family, which is like, but for Jeff, it's like, can't I choose both? And, that's the thing. That's the struggle of a superhero, balancing both the home life as well as, the hero life, which, like, his is kind of split 3 ways because he's trying to save the city, in particular, like, his students by getting them good, leading them down the right paths to have good lives while also protecting his family, while also protecting the city as Black Lightning. So it's a situation that can leave you very stretched, so. But, like I said, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good